Is Democratic Congressman Khanna of California. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, I want to get your reaction to how you see the administration's handling of this situation right now, the messaging that has been coming out, and whether you see a disconnect between what some members of Congress are calling for in the international community and what the White House is doing.
There is a disconnect. Bluntly, this is not the time for platitudes. Children are dying, and Netanyahu, who is desperate to cling to power, is out there saying that he is doing this with the United States' support. The president needs to make it very clear. No, you are not. We need an immediate ceasefire. That means a ceasefire for Israel to stop the bombing, and it means a ceasefire for Hamas to stop the rockets so that both Palestinian lives and Israeli lives can be saved.
One of the points that has been at the center of this administration has been human rights. At least that's what they claim. Back in February, the Secretary of State released a statement saying that this administration's foreign policy would put human rights front and center of international policies and decision-making. How do you square that with their response? And we're putting that statement there from the State Department on the screen. How do you square that statement with the response that we're seeing now across Israel and Gaza? Do you believe human rights are being put at the center of decision-making?
They obviously are not. You can't square. I mean, the secretary said that, quote, he would uphold and the United States would uphold human rights everywhere. And I was flabbergasted when I saw the statement this morning as he said, quote, it's up to the parties themselves to decide whether to have a ceasefire. Well, then why do you need a Secretary of State? The whole job of a Secretary of State is to help bring peace, to help lead the world in a way that upholds human rights. Instead, we have vetoed 3 times the UN Security Council calling for a ceasefire. That's wrong. They need to fix this now as children are dying.
I want to play for you some video that came in on Sunday. It shows the rescue effort following an Israeli airstrike in Gaza City. You see it there on your screen as well. It is of a young 6-year-old girl who was pulled out of the rubble once that airstrike collapsed the building on her, killing members of her family and others. What role does Congress have to play in this? What do you make of what you have been seeing and hearing from your members, your colleagues as well? Because, quite frankly, it is American weaponry that is being used on those people in Gaza.
Well, first, what I hear is just anguish from people around the country for the children who are dying, for the families that are being devastated, both in Gaza and in Israel. And the United States Congress has to be unequivocal that none of our weaponry can be used in a way that violates human rights or dignity, that America doesn't stand for that. And we need to be very clear that we demand a ceasefire. If the president today calls up Prime Minister Netanyahu and says a ceasefire needs to happen, a ceasefire will happen. Netanyahu is saying that it may take more time. He wants to exact a heavy price. Let's not obfuscate language. What does that mean? It means more people will die. The president needs to end this, and he can end this with one phone call. And the ceasefire has to apply to Israel. It has to apply to Hamas. And that is the just, the moral, the humane thing to do.
Yeah, the president says he's going to be speaking to the Israeli prime minister. You obviously, from what you're telling me, sounds like you believe the administration and the U.S. has leverage over Israel. What do you want him to say to the prime minister when that phone call happens?
Stop it. End the violence. Have a ceasefire. And he needs to have the same message to Hamas that we need a ceasefire. And I believe if the president says that, the violence will end. I know that because Netanyahu is out there saying that he has a blank check from the United States. That's what he's saying. He says this is going to go on for more time and that the United States is with him. No, we're not. There are many members of Congress, including supporters of the U.S.-Israel relationship, like myself and others, who are saying that Netanyahu does not have a blank check, and he's doing this, by all accounts, including Thomas Friedman's column this morning, simply to hold on to power. This is not furthering the security interests of Israel or the people or either Palestine or Israel.
All right, Congressman Khanna, thank you so much for your time, sir.